Great, thank you. Go ahead and call this meeting of the Board of Water Resources to order. Thank you for your patience in beginning this meeting a bit later than the initially scheduled time. We were experiencing some technical difficulties related to the recording and broadcasting of this meeting. We currently are not live streaming via YouTube. However, we are recording. The YouTube live stream will begin as soon as it's able to begin, but we will have captured the full meeting as required via recording, and that will be posted for anyone to view in its entirety. And so let's go ahead and start with introductions. My name is Juliette Tennert, honored to serve as chair of the Board of Water Resources, and I represent Salt Lake and Tooele counties.
Madam Chair, I'm Charles Holmgren. I represent Box Elder, Cache, Rich counties in the Bear River Basin.
Kyle Stevens, and I represent Weber River Basin.
I'm Spencer Jones, and I represent the lower Colorado River Basin.
I'm Blaine Ibsen, and I represent the Sevier River District.
Dana Van Horn, Upper Colorado River District.
Mike Davis, Provo River. Randy Crozier, Green River, Uinta-Daggett, and Duchesne County.
Great, thank you. I will note that our newest board member, Brian Steed, who represents the Great Salt Lake, is excused from this meeting, and we will look forward to his official swearing in or oath of office in the next meeting of the board. Director Hassenjager, will you please introduce your team?
Hey, with us today, that doesn't sound like it's coming through. Hello? Hello? Maybe. Okay.
Try that one.
Let me just make sure this one works. Okay, sounds good. With us today, we have Joel Williams, Shalane DiBernardi, Todd Stoneley, Marisa Egbert, Tom Cox, Russell Hadley, Ani Baynard, Brad Caldwell, Ethan Stayner, Randy Staker, Shannon Clow doing minutes. Thank you, Shannon. With us from the AG's office, we have Marty Bushman and Liz Harris. And from the department, Joel Ferry and Todd Adams. And then our amazing AV team in the back who is working out all of our technical difficulties, Carmen McDonald and Seth Major. So big thanks to them too.
Thank you very much. I will note that, of course, we take public comment during the meeting, and then we also take that comment online. It's my understanding that no public comment has been submitted online for this meeting. Is that correct, Randy? Shalene is giving me the thumbs up that that is correct. We'll go ahead and move to the next agenda item, which is the approval of minutes. I know that everyone got those minutes in their packets. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. I had one spelling error in the briefing meeting minutes that I pointed out to the clerk taking notes, and with that correction, I will move that we approve the minutes.
Great, thank you. Is there, okay, we've got a second by Randy Crozier. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those minutes are approved. Next, we'll move into our project reports, starting with the feasibility reports. I will note that before every Board of Water Resources meeting where action takes place, we hold a briefing meeting immediately prior. That briefing meeting is public and it is shared in all the same ways that our regular board meeting is shared. So we had robust discussions on all of these items in our briefing meeting, and then of course we'll continue to have discussions and ask questions. But I just wanted to note for those who were new to the business before the Board of Water Resources that briefing meeting happens just before our regular board meeting, and there is much information shared in that meeting. So we'll go ahead and start with the feasibility reports. And our first project is RE 472, Davis and Weber Counties Canal Company. Tom Cox is the project manager and will be presenting this report. And then I will note that Rick Smith, general manager for the Canal Company, is with us today. Welcome, Mr. Smith. Go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the Davis-Weber Counties Canal Company was incorporated in 1884 and provides approximately 60,000 acre-feet of water annually to several wholesale agencies, and they have over 17,000 secondary irrigation connections and provide water to about 9,000 acres of farm ground. This water is primarily conveyed through the Davis and Weber Canal, and over the years the board has provided $30+ million for improvements to that canal, as well as about the same amount to their secondary irrigation system. As you look at the map, you can kind of see that there's the canal runs along the top of the bluff where Hill Air Force Base is, and that's to the left of the map. And at one point, there's a abandoned penstock that the company uses to flush the water in the springtime of the system before they put the water in all their water users. And it's also a point where that they can use for an emergency discharge in case that they need to drain the canal in an emergency. This penstock is aging. It's an old steel pipeline. If you look at the map from the dashed line from the left down the hill is the penstock, and then the water discharges into a concrete lined canal or channel, and then further to an unimproved, unlined channel, flows under the Interstate 84 and then into the Weber River. The proposed project is to replace that penstock with a new pipeline and make improvements to that unimproved channel. So here's a photo. You can see the concrete channel that's the closest, and then in the distance the tree lines where the unimproved channel is. And here's a photo of the old steel penstock. So the proposed cost estimate is $1.175 million, and it's proposed, and the staff recommends the board authorize 85% of the project cost up to $999,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 20 years with annual payments of approximately $50,000. The interest rate is 0% because this is coming from the revolving construction fund, and that's the interest rate coming from that fund. Madam Chair, members of the board, that's staff's report.
Thank you for that report. Mr. Smith, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the board?
No, again, thank you for your assistance in our projects, and if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you. Board members, are there any questions for Tom or Mr. Smith?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
just curious, so the old penstock that supplied the power plant, so did the power company have a portion of the canal to deliver water to there to drop it through? Just curious how that was set up.
I don't know all the history. There was an agreement in 1912. So again, I think they helped pay for some of the operation and maintenance of our canal and some capacity, and then we delivered that water down. Finding old information, we actually own the entire corridor, and I think somehow with an agreement with Utah Power and Light, it was deeded to them. They operated it till about 1972, and we have an agreement from 1972 that we still have that right to discharge water down that channel.
Okay, so the water right that they had was a non-consumptive right, I assume?
Right.
So did you end up with that right, or did it go away?
So Rocky Mountain Power, Pacific Core still has a lot of power rights on the Weber side.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for being here. A question on that came up earlier in our briefing meeting discussion, and was that part of the project is acquisition of some property. What is the status of that acquisition?
We're still discussing things with Pacific Core. They've already told us they don't want to get rid of all the property. There's potential for parts of it. There's some sections there where there's an old power area. They think there's still stuff underground that's been abandoned, but they don't want to go through a huge effort to clean all that out prior to exchanging property. So we're actually talking about potentially fencing things a little differently so we can access that channel without them babysitting us, because of that power plant and the FERC requirements. They'd have to actually monitor our construction. So we're talking about putting a fence around and securing their substation without restricting our use of the property. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Any other questions? Not. I think we'd be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make that motion. The motion would be that the board authorize 85% of the project cost up to $999,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest for 20 years with annual payments of approximately $50,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second to the motion.
Okay, seconded by Charles Holmgren. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item of business is approved. We have another item of business that is related. It is project RE474, Davis and Weaver County's Canal Company again. Tom, go ahead and share the information on this one with us.
Let's try the mic this time. Madam Chairman, members of the board, the Davis Weaver County Canals Company, as I mentioned before, has an ongoing program to make improvements to the canal. They are proposing for the next section, must be on a timer here, so I have to talk fast. And so this will be work that's completed in the fall of 2024 after the water's out of the system. And they're proposing to enclose about 980 feet of canal and replace approximately 1,420 feet of pipeline that was installed earlier but has deteriorated and needs to be replaced. So here's a general overview. So if you can see the cursor and if I can find it here. The upper left here is the canal enclosure part. And down further in Layton is the canal replacement part. And just for your information, oops, go back, wrong way. The penstock project is right here, so it's just around the corner from where these other proposed projects are. So the canal enclosure project is right by the Hill Air Force Base Museum in that general area. That reservoir there is Roy Water Conservancy District's regulating pond. And so here are a couple of pictures of the canal. So it has been lined, but the canal is deteriorating. And on here you can see to the canal is actually kind of sitting above ground so it drops off to the right. There are businesses there, and in the distance you can see Interstate 15, so it runs right along that area. Here's just another section where it's breaking up. So it's proposed that the project cost is $4.5 million. They are getting a Water Smart grant from the Bureau of Reclamation. But staff recommends the board authorize 52.9% of the project cost up to $2,380,000. That the project be purchased at 2.1% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $107,800. That interest rate is obtained from kind of a weighted average of the ag interest rate and the M&I interest rate. So we come up with 2.1% interest. Madam Chair, members of the board, that's staff's report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, anything that you'd like to share?
Just real quick, that one section of canal we showed, that picture was actually installed when I-15 went in that area. So it's roughly 60+ years old.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions of the board for the applicant or the department? Seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make that motion, but before I do, I just would like to call your attention. The general area is in the area up by Riverdale Road, where there's a lot of construction going on right now with the realignment of I-15 and the Riverdale Road on and off ramps. And that whole area is being reconfigured and stuff. So there's, if you had an opportunity to traverse that area, you'll know that there's been a little bit of a bottleneck there over the last few months. But I'll proceed with the motion, and that is that the board authorize 52.9% of the project cost up to $2,380,000, and that the project be purchased at 2.1% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $107,800.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Randy Crozier. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, that project has been approved. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Well, moving right along, we've got a couple of secondary meter projects up next. We'll start out with RM074, Lehi City. Tom? Oh, yes, and I should mention that we have Dean Lundell with us, the finance director for Lehi City, and Jason Walker is online. Welcome, Mr. Lundell and Mr. Walker. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the Lehi City has received funding from the board for installing secondary water meters as required by the state. Previously, they have received in round one, $10 million in grant money and about $3.6 million in loan money from the board. In last board meeting, the board authorized and committed an additional $6.2 million or so in grant money, and the city is here before the board today to request funds for the loan money to match that part. And so staff is recommending the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,692,000. Oh, this is on auto advance, so trying to. There we go. $2,267,000 as a loan. The bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $176,000, and that includes reserves. There we go. And that's staff's report.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we had the benefit of having it static on a piece of paper in front of us. So well done trying to manage
this is
the
on auto advance,
dynamic PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Lundell, thank you for being with us. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with the board?
No, just appreciate the assistance with this project. We're ahead of schedule with what we've been doing so far. I think we're at 2,763. I asked for a number this morning, and that's how many we've done so far out of about 14,000. So I think we're moving about as fast as we can, and we're appreciative, and we'll meet all our deadlines.
Great. Thank you so much for all of your efforts in that. Any questions for the department or the applicant? Not, I'd be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I would make the motion that the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,267,000 as a loan, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $176,000, including reserves.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? All right, seconded by Blaine Ibsen. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that project or Yes, the project has been approved. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to RM 116 Bountiful Irrigation District. It looks like that we have online joining us Kirk Gao, president for the district. And Tom will be making this presentation as well.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Bountiful Irrigation District serves approximately 9,800 secondary irrigation connections, and about 1,800 of those connections have been metered. They received the grant and loan funds from the first round of the funding process, and last board meeting, the board authorized and committed $7,389,000 in ARPA grant funds, and the district is here to request the loan funds to match that. So staff recommends the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,692,000, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $209,000, and that includes reserves.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Mr. Gao, I'm afraid that I'm butchering your last name. Do you have anything to share with the board? Oh, I think, try unmuting, and the problem may be on our end. Are you able to unmute?
There.
Oh, perfect. We can hear you.
Nothing specific, but thank the board for their assistance with the grant and the loans and getting this project done. And I think with this, we should be able to finish up our project by year end 2026.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I would like to make that motion that the board authorize 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,692,000 as a loan, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $209,000, including reserves. That would be the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Dana Van Horn. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, that project has been approved. Thank you. Moving on, next we have RL 590, the Metropolitan Water District of Salt Lake and Sandy. We have with us Wayne Windsor, who is the Assistant General Manager of the district, and Jonathan Ward, who's Senior Vice President for Zion's Public Finance, I think representing the district. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to our newest staff member, Bradley Caldwell, who we are so grateful to have join us. And also, I was mentioning in the briefing meeting, this is a little bit more of a complicated, I mean, all of our projects are complicated, but this one is a little bit more complicated than many. And so, Bradley, we just appreciate you just jumping in on this one and are happy to hear your presentation.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Metropolitan Water District has a primary mission to provide culinary water to Salt Lake and Sandy. And for this proposed project, here's their entire pipeline system. And the proposed project is between those two arrows that I pointed out in Cottonwood Heights. And then so the existing condition of the pipelines that they have is one is in active failure mode, as Metro has stated, and the other is seismically unstable and aging. And so the proposed project is to purchase and install about 2.5 miles of steel welded pipe and 2,400 feet of HDPE pipe. And so as stated in the previous meeting, that they wanted 30 years to be reduced to 25 years. So the total cost will be $50 million. And it is suggested that the board participate in an interest rate buy down with Metro to buy the market rate down to a net effective interest rate of 3%. The 22 million bonded indebtedness to the board will be returned at 1% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $885,000 for 20 years and annual payments of approximately $1,991,000. The last 5 years includes reserves.
Mr. Windsor, Mr. Ward, is there anything that you'd like to share with the board?
Thank you, Madam Chair and the board. We appreciate you receiving our application today and prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start. This is in my area, so I've been a little bit closer to the project and appreciate the staff's work and then appreciate your work in submitting information and kind of helping me to understand. In our briefing discussion, we had a little bit of concern around going out 30 years for participation of this size for municipality. Just wanted to kind of get your reaction on, you're probably seeing numbers that are a little bit different maybe than you saw in initial materials going to that 25 years. Can you just react to that, please?
Thank you. And the short answer is we welcome the change and don't have any problems with that.
Okay, thank you. Another question that I had was just around the source of repayment. Are you raising rates to pay? What are you doing on repayment?
Again, appreciate that question. We have been in communication with both our member cities, Salt Lake and Sandy. This particular project has been earmarked for part of the property tax increase we are considering for the fiscal year coming forward. That's barring or contingent upon both of our member cities supporting that property tax increase. Our current water rates are also been projected out, and we'll maintain those water rates going out for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion then.
I'll make a motion that, can you go back to the other slide? Thank you. It's suggested that the board participate in the interest rate buy-down with the buy-down market rate to a net effective interest rate of 3%. The $22 million in bonded indebtedness to the board will be returned at 1% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $885,000 for 20 years and annual payments of approximately $1,991,000 for the last 500 years.
5 years, not 500.
Let me clarify. Payments of approximately $1,991,000. The last 5 years include reserves.
All right, thank you for that motion. That includes the parameters that are projected on the screen. Is there a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, if I might suggest that the board needs to approve, not suggest. In the motion, it said it's suggested. I just need to clarify that the board moves, and I'd be happy to second that motion if that's okay with the...
I make that clarification.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion before us that's been seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that has been approved. Thank you very much. Thanks, gentlemen.
Madam Chair, if I might, it just when Spencer was making the motion and mentioned 500 years, they kind of pounded their heart a little bit, thanking the clarification.
Thank you. I mean, we were talking earlier about, what the world will look like in 30 years, and 500 years cannot even conceive of what that might look like. Thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our last feasibility report, and that is RL 591 for Herkin City. Ethan Stayner, another one of our newest staff members, will be making this presentation. And we have with us Mayor Nanette Billings and Brent Gardner, who is the engineer on this project from Alpha Engineering in person. And then online we have Caden DeMille, who I believe is an engineer. Excellent. So thank you so much. Go ahead with the report, Ethan.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. So we have here the municipal boundary for Hurricane, and they have just over 9,000 connections in the drinking water system, and about just over 1,500 of those are on secondary connections as well. And so this is a two-part upgrades to the culinary system and the secondary irrigation system. By the red part on the map, the red outline is the existing service area for the pressurized irrigation system, and so the blue is where they're looking to expand and get an additional about 700 connections and install about 17 mile of pipe, and so that's the pressurized irrigation system. And then for the culinary upgrades, there's kind of hard to see, but red dots where the wells will be drilled to provide some more source capacity for the culinary system, and a new 2 million gallon tank to provide some source capacity for the culinary system as well. And this will help kind of reduce dependence on the culinary system and the old flood irrigation system. But and so the staff recommendation is that the board authorize 40.5% of the project cost up to $12,665,000 as a loan, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $528,000.
Thank you, Ethan, for that report. To the applicants, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the board?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate staff's recommendation. He's right. Our city is growing 54 square miles, 22% developed, and every one of you want to have a second home there. So, and we're just trying to figure out how we can, this is a really great system because we're using Hurricane Canal shares to go into the system so that we actually, first of all, just the leaky pipes, and it just we need this. It's just going to bless our city. We have a lot of needs and asks, but we're in need of having to develop the water and the rights that we have and to be able to put it in use and help the residents. So. And we've met with Zion's Public Finance. Our city manager and our finance director has gone through all of our numbers, and we are capable of making sure that we're very confident in our bond repayment over the next 25 years. It's going to be a good thing and not extend our we're glad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being so forward-thinking out about a very important part of our state. Any questions of the board or comments? Go ahead, Blaine Ibsen.
I visited with the mayor before the meeting. Turns out she is my son's wife's aunt. We grew up in the same town. I was gone by the time over in Monroe. But I was just curious if you have seen our former beloved board member, Jim Lemon, recently. He was on this board for a long time.
I talked to him Sunday about this project.
Say hello to him for us.
Say hi to Jim
He's a
for us.
wonderful man.
And
Thank you.
anyway, just sounds like a good project.
He lives 5 houses from me.
Oh, excellent. Then definitely go say hi to us.
Just for clarification, I'll keep my house in God's country. I don't want to move to Hurricane.
You're the only one that's not wanting to move to Hurricane. Or the second home. That's the other part, is there's a second home there.
Regardless, there's too many people. My nearest neighbor's a half mile, and I refuse to give up that opportunity.
That does sound lovely. We'll make sure that goes on the record, and we'll hold you to it. Great. Are there any other questions or comments? We had to be looking for a motion if not.
I'll make a motion. Just want to appreciate you coming all the way, both of you coming up from Hurricane. That's quite a distance. Like to make a motion that the board authorize 40.5% of the project cost up to $12,665,000 and that the bonded indebtedness.
As a loan. As a loan.
No. Doesn't say that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it doesn't. It does on there, but it doesn't here.
It does need to be a loan. I think we do need to have it be a loan.
It's got to be a loan.
It's not needed. It's bonded indebtedness. Implies that it's a loan.
Okay, so I'm going to just restate this as I said, just for the record. The board authorized 40.5% of the project cost up to $12,665,000 and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $528,000, including reserves.
All right, thank you for that motion. Looking for a second. All right, seconded by Blaine Ibsen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, motion passes and
Thank you,
that
board members.
project has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the committal of funds. We have RM086, the Morgan Secondary Water Association. Russell Hadley will be doing the presentation on this one. And if I understand correctly, there's no one required to be representing the project, given that we're at committal of funds stage.
Yes. Madam Chair and members of the board, the purpose of the project is to purchase and install approximately 840 secondary water meters in the town of Morgan. The project was authorized in March of 2023, and the board committed ARPA funds at the same meeting, but not the loan funds. The applicant has since completed their requirements for the loan. Cost estimate and sharing remain as authorized, with Board of Water Resources loan being at $640,000, the Board of Water Resources grant, the ARPA grant, at $1,757,000, and the applicant will provide $113,000 for a total project cost of $2,510,000. Staff recommends the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $640,000 and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $46,200. That is staff's report.
Thank you, Russell. Does the board have any questions or comments on this committal of funds? I'd be looking for a motion then.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion, and that is that the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $640,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $46,200.
Thank you. We have a motion by Kyle Stevenson. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Charles Holmgren. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that committal of funds has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a couple of special items. RE 470 Eden Waterworks. We have representing this project John Werner, who is the board chair for the company, and Nathan Smith, engineer. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Engineer with JB Engineers. And Tom Cox is doing the staff presentation. Go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, members of the board, in June of 2023, the board committed funds to install about 6,800 feet of PVC transmission pipeline. The construction is underway. However, when the bids were opened, they were significantly over the project cost estimate. For the company is here before the board today to ask for additional funds to help cover those costs. So you can see the map, just a little reminder of where the pipeline is. You can see the Pine View Reservoir at the bottom, and Eden is up north of that. So staff recommends the board commit an additional $425,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state the board will provide 85% of the project cost up to $2,125,000 that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $82,400. That's staff's report.
Great, thank you. Chair Werner, Mr. Smith, is there any comment that you'd like to share with the board?
Madam Chair and Board, we're grateful to be able to return and be able to request to complete this project. So we appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comment of the board?
Madam Chair, I have just a curiosity question, I guess, and that is where you're requesting an additional $425,000. What was the main item that required the additional monies?
It was really just a general increase on everything.
Okay.
Pipe prices were up considerably, about 25% of what we estimated. Backfill was also higher than we estimated.
It was a combination of issues there, not just one single one.
Yeah, we had 3 directional drills that were also on the project. So we coordinated very closely with UDOT because they were crossing their roadway. And those were also considerably more expensive than we anticipated.
Okay.
If there's no other comments or questions, I'd be looking for motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion. And I just state before I do, if anyone else wants that project so that I don't commandeer all of the time with making motions, you're feel free to do so. But anyway, with that, I'll make the motion that the board commit an additional $425,000 and amend the purchase agreements to state the board will provide 85% of the project cost up to $2,125,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $82,400.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Great, seconded by Randy Crozier. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Great, the motion passes and the authorization of those additional funds is approved. Next, we have special item RE468, Liberty Pipeline Company. This is a reauthorization. And we have with us Jamie Hadlock, the president for the company, and Nathan Smith continues with us as the project engineer, and then Vicki Peterson is a guest of Liberty Pipeline. Great, and Ani will be doing the staff report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liberty Pipeline Company came to the board in August with a project including the installation of a booster pump station, 11,000 feet of 8-inch transmission pipeline, and a replacement of the existing 6-inch distribution pipeline with an 8-inch pipeline. Since the authorization of funds provided from the Conservation and Development Fund, the company feels like the project is too expensive at this time and would like to reduce the scope and cost of the project. The main purpose of the original project was to make the system more drought resilient. The north pressure zone is fed by a spring that is susceptible to drought conditions, whereas the south pressure zone has a reliable water supply. The booster pump station and transmission line will boost flows from the south to the north zones. This part of the scope of the project will remain the same. The company would like to remove the replacement of the existing 6-inch distribution line from the project. This will reduce the cost of the pipe, the bedding, the backfill, and the asphalt repair by almost half. Due to the reduced cost estimate, the applicant is requesting that their funding be provided from the revolving construction fund. Staff recommends the board reauthorize 27.2% of the project cost up to $1 million from the revolving construction fund as a loan, and the project be purchased at 0% interest over 20 years with annual payments of approximately $50,000. That is staff's report.
Thank you. Do the applicants have any comments or comments to share with the board? Thank you.
Is that on?
Yeah, you're on that.
Okay. I just want to say we appreciate your reconsideration of this. We're a small community, and that was just too much. So thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions or comments, Randy?
Madam Chairman, just a question. Reducing your scope isn't going to affect your Water Smart grant, is it?
No, it's a 50-50 match, and we still meet those requirements.
Okay, I just wanted to just curious whether you lost that funding piece. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Right, be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make this motion as well. And the motion is that the board reauthorize the funding to provide 27.2% of the project cost up to $1 million from the revolving construction fund, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 20 years with annual payments of approximately $50,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, oh my goodness. Mike, but Wyatt Davis. I wanted to call you Mike Peterson for some reason. So thank you very much. Seconded by Mike Davis. I don't know. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We move that reauthorization is approved. Moving on to our final special item, RM103 Grantsville Irrigation Company. Ani Baynard will be doing the staff report, and we welcome Gene Marshall, who is president of the company in person. And then online we have Judd Lawrence from Brigham Engineering.
We're not sure if he's online or not, but Gene's here, so that's all that matters.
That's right. That's good. Thank you for being here in person. We appreciate that.
Okay, so Madam Chair, members of the board, in the June board meeting, Grantsville Irrigation Company received a $2 million water conservation ARPA grant to install, repair, replace residential secondary meters and to repair and replace the South and North Willow Creek diversions. The company is running into delays and other issues with U.S. Forest Service on the South Willow intake structure. They would like to use the money that was allocated for the South Willow diversion repair for the reconstruction of the North Willow inlet ditch. The scope for the meter installation and the North Willow Creek diversion remains the same. The North Willow Creek inlet ditch was poorly designed, and the company has had many problems over the years. They have tried many solutions, including pumping concrete into the voids, replacing bad sections, and installing gravel to stop or reduce the leakage. Nothing has worked. They feel that full reconstruction of the ditch is the only viable solution. Continued leakage, especially in the upper portions of the ditch, causes erosion of the cover material and the clay seal. Eventually, the clay seal will fail, possibly causing major damage in the reservoir. The use of the ARPA grant funds for the replacement of the inlet ditch would be beneficial in conserving and protecting secondary water resources. Staff recommends the board reauthorize and commit $2 million as a water conservation ARPA grant to include the scope changes. That is staff's report.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, do you have any comment that you'd like to share with the board? Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments of the board for the department or the applicant? Oh, there we go. All right. If there are no questions or comment, I would be looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion that the board reauthorize and commit $2 million as a water conservation ARPA grant to include the scope changes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Seconded by the esteemed Mike Davis. Is there any discussion?
So just a question. The wording of the motion is not what's up there. I guess it is an ARPA grant, right? We have something up here I'm looking at that doesn't include the ARPA on the screen.
It is an ARPA grant, the water conservation grant. I'm sorry it's not on the slide.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It's just that, the PowerPoint is a little bit different than the book. So it's always good to check on that because I was looking at the book. So thank you, Blaine, for always paying attention to those things. The motion is before us. It's been seconded, and we've confirmed that the language works. We've had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That a reauthorization and committal of funds has been approved. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the Great Salt Lake Public Trust lawsuit, and Marty Bushman from the Attorney General's office will be doing a presentation for us, or a briefing for us. Oh, and it sounds actually, so it sounds like Liz Harris of the Attorney General's office will be doing a presentation for us. Whatever you're most comfortable with, yeah. That's great, thank you. And I just want to say again, I appreciate the briefing that you gave us in the previous meeting, and then also the information that was provided to us ahead of this meeting. So thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Well, good morning. We are coming today to talk about a lawsuit that was filed in September against the Department of Natural Resources, the Division of Water Rights, and the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. It alleges that the state has breached the public trust doctrine and seeks a remedy that all upstream diversions of the Great Salt Lake be curtailed. And we are concerned that this would potentially affect the board. I believe, as Shalane mentioned earlier, there are at least 150 outstanding projects that are still being repaid that the board has funded. And if these water rights were curtailed, it potentially would affect the ability of those projects to be repaid. So the AG's office and the division is coming to the board today to see if the board would like to move to intervene in that action to protect its interest in those water rights that it owns and protect the repayment of the projects that have been funded. And if the board does decide to intervene, to appoint a liaison that can work with the AG's office to make sure that the board is represented in that litigation.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Go ahead, Kyle.
Madam Chair, just a couple, I made the comment earlier that if they were to prevail, what the economic hardship would be on the rest of the residents of the state. And it would be interesting just to kind of understand what that would be, how many billions of dollars. But the other part of it, my second part of my question is, you indicated that roughly 150 outstanding loans. Does that include those that have been considered to date? And if entities were made aware of this lawsuit, which is a public information that they could be, what potential impact could that have on future projects coming forth, knowing that this is kind of hanging out there?
Very good questions, Kyle. No, the 150 are only contracted and currently making repayments. So anything committed but not contracted is not even considered in that. And I think it's helpful to note that over the 76 years of the board's existence, it's funded about 1,600, more than that now, projects. But there are still 150 that are currently making repayments to the board. So no, when we say the 150 outstanding, that doesn't consider current projects under consideration, those that have had funds committed by this board but have not yet completed their construction, have not entered into a contract. They're just those that are already, most of them are already using their project and just haven't fully repaid it.
Thank you. I just would like to mention that I'm supportive of the board intervening, as you mentioned, these projects that are currently in repayment, and it's repayment to the board, but I just want to really underline that, I mean, the board, we're kind of a facilitator and we help to manage the funds. These are taxpayer funds that have been loaned out and are due back to the taxpayer, essentially the state, for continued use for, things like water conservation and infrastructure. And so I just wanted to just be really clear that, that I support intervention in terms of protecting these taxpayer funds.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
This also, if this was to prevail, would turn water law upside down in the state of Utah, which it would be a devastating effect on much of the economy. Anyway, it would have tremendous effect, and I would like to thank Liz and Shalene for the presentation that they brought to us and the discussion that we've had in our previous briefing meeting. If there isn't any more comments, I would like to make a motion, if that's appropriate. I move the board seek to intervene in the Great Salt Lake litigation to protect its interests and authorize the Attorney General's office to represent the board in that litigation. I also move that we designate the board chair, the vice chair, and division director to act as an executive committee to handle the day-to-day litigation issues and determine which matters need to come before the full board for discussion and approval.
And I will second that.
Right, thank you. So we have a motion before us that has been seconded by Spencer Jones. We have the ability for any additional comment during discussion. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, the motion passes, and we appreciate your help, and we'll just look forward to that executive committee was mentioned, so look forward to that committee working with you all, and then as a full board, we'll look forward to appropriate briefings and decision points. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the final water marketing strategies report. We will go, given timing and the availability of Emily Lewis, we will go ahead and move this agenda item to our meeting in January. I am certain that Emily Lewis, who's just done a great job of briefing us, would be available for questions if we have any between now and then, but we'll look forward to hearing that final water marketing strategies report at our next meeting. And so moving on, I will give the time over to Director Hassenjager for the director's report.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. This weekend was exciting. Did you guys get any snow at your house? I was looking at the SWE on the snow water equivalent on Monday morning and this morning, and it's roughly about 111% statewide, and it ranges anywhere from like 67% in the Dirty Devil, Escalante area, all the way up to 130% in the Weber-Ogden River area. Prior to this last weekend, on December 1st, for the Weber Basin, it was previously 45%. So this storm did a lot to help improve some of our conditions. Our soil moisture is still looking like it's in a good spot, and then our reservoir storage is 77% of normal. We typically have water supply briefing updates, and we'll make sure to have invite the Utah Snow Survey to provide those to you starting in January, but I just wanted to give you a little flavor of where we're at. We also have some exciting news. Every year, the Department of Natural Resources does awards, our annual awards, and it's always great when one of our own has been nominated and receives an award. This year, the Director's Choice Award, so Joel was kind of funny yesterday. He's like, yeah, so that means I can give it to whoever I want. But he selected to give it to Jake Sarago, one of our engineers, has done a lot of work, a lot of amazing work, and it was great to recognize him yesterday and take him out to lunch and all those things. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that. In addition, this last month, there was an water audit that came out, and already in your email boxes you have a copy to the link to the audit as well as a brief summary, but I did want to highlight some of that. And just as a little bit of background, the Legislative Audit Subcommittee requested the audit of Utah's water usage, focusing on efficiency, data reliability, and opportunities to improve policies with Utah's water Utah's water usage. It was really broken into 3 areas, one specifically on water data. So there's a chapter on water data. There's a chapter on the ag optimization program that's ran by UDAF. And then there was also a chapter on state water planning. And generally their findings, I'll just kind of read some of the brief findings, that water use accountability and transparency can be improved by increasing usability of water use data. The audit also demonstrated the need for water rights to implement best management practices for data management to improve effectiveness. Implementing the best management practices will allow benefit also for the ag optimization program to be measured and maximized and targeted. Improved planning and monitoring are needed as part of the ag optimization program to ensure that the $200 million is spent as required, as the legislature envisioned. And then they also noted, as far as state water planning, that we needed additional statutory strengthening is needed for more effective water planning and to ensure Utah's water future. Comprehensive state water planning needs to account for growth and future water use and needs. One of the things we have done since that audit has come out is we met with the Utah Water Task Force and have set up a state water planning work group to help us define it. One of, I'll say, criticisms that we saw in the audit was that our state water plan isn't comprehensive enough. And my first question is, what is a comprehensive state water plan? And so this work group is going to work to define that. And within that, also that massive bill that you received earlier in our briefing meeting, there is a section in that changes our state water planning statutory code to help define state water planning, as well as to give us rulemaking authority to elaborate on it. So the work group can work on that as well. Governor Cox's moving on to the next subject, Governor Cox's 2024 budget recommendations have come out. That included more than $561 million investment in water infrastructure, conservation, planning, management, agricultural optimization, and Great Salt Lake interventions, specifically for water resources. I'm just pulling them up right here. The governor recommended 1 state water planning specialist, an additional $5 million in one-time money for dam safety, funding for watershed councils, $20 million for aqueduct resiliency, funding for informative water bills, training for water-wise landscaping practices. So there is definitely some good things in the governor's budget. We did get information this year that the budgets were a lot tighter than they've been the last couple of years. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that, but also it's good to see that we're still getting some investment in water. Since our last board meeting, we did have a Bear River Commission meeting held on November 14th. Generally, and Charles can speak more to this if he would like to chime in, they covered an update on the Great Salt Lake data gap analysis. Blake Bingham from Water Rights did a presentation on that. And then Laura Vernon from Water Resources provided a Great Salt Lake Basin Integrated Plan update as well. There was also information from the Water Quality Committee, the Records and Public Involvement Committee, and the Operations Committee. And then the commissioners provided the Technical Advisory Committee a long list of things that they would like them to do. So that's another outcome of that. Did I miss anything, Charles, that you want to add?
No, Madam Director, you've covered it very well. And all I would add is that to your report is that the storm we had over this past weekend, that I did light the cloud seeder, and that's part of why there's so much snow in those mountains.
That's right. Well, good. Thank you for your efforts there, Charles. Just on the Colorado River, the 7-state negotiations are ongoing. right now, the 7 basin states are trying to come to a consensus alternative for the post-2026 operations and that environmental impact statement process. I hear those conversations are fairly heated. They're meeting every other week, if not weekly, going through discussions and modeling. It seems like they have a long way to go to kind of find, hopefully, that consensus alternative. But the target is March is the time frame. They've got to come together to have a consensus alternative. So working hard toward that, but it is challenging for sure. As far as a water conservation update, our water conservation plans are due on December 31st for the systems that are to get them to us. We've had a lot of people turn them in, so we're working to get them through that process, and hopefully we'll get them all completed and received and completed by the 31st. And then this year we had 3.7 million square feet of grass that have been replaced with water-wise landscaping in 2023. And that is about an estimated savings of 104 million gallons of water annually. So that's exciting. And then finally, two things. Great Salt Lake update. We have some exciting news. This last month, we were able to release the Great Salt Lake Basin Integrated Plan work plan. So we took the last year to kind of lay out what needed to be in this basin integrated plan, and now we are starting to work on implementing that. We will have a virtual open house on Thursday from 6 to 8, and I'm happy to send you more information on that. And then we do have a public comment period open until the beginning of January. That being said, there's a lot of things that we know we got to get done as far as modeling and things, so we are trying to move quickly as well, because 2026 and 27, we have to be completed by 2026, and then 2027 we have to have a report done. While that seems far away, there's a lot to do, so we need to get cracking. And then also just an item of note, the Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner has provided his strategic plan to the governor's office on November 30th. The governor's office have 30 days to review the plan and provide any comment and feedback back. So there will be a public plan sometime in January, I would assume. Right now it's in the governor's office for their review as a draft. And then one other item of note on the Great Salt Lake Commissioner's office, Brian Steed, our fearless commissioner, has hired Deputy Commissioner Tim Davis. He was previously in the role of director at the Division of Drinking Water. So he was helping out Brian now and is already doing a great job. No surprise there. He's going to be great in that role. And then one last item of note on the water horse litigation. The court granted our summary judgment motion yesterday in the water horse, and the case was dismissed. We're not sure at this point whether water horse will appeal, but wanted to let you guys know that that case has been dismissed at this point, which is good news. And that is my director's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Thank you very much, Candace. Great. Our final agenda item is the election of 2024 Board of Water Resources officers. We had pretty robust discussion on this during the briefing meeting, and so I would just be looking for a couple of motions, a motion for the election of the chair and then a motion for the election of the vice chair.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to have Jeanette. I make a motion to have Juliet Tenert be the chair of the board for this next year.
Thank you, Blaine. All right, seconded by Randy Crozier. Any discussion? I will just add my 2 cents. It's just a total honor to serve as chair. I was looking forward to stepping back a little bit, but as I mentioned, I feel like I'm finally just kind of getting my feet. And so I do think that there's some wisdom in serving 2 years as chair. And so I'm honored to take honored with the motion. And also I'm glad because moving forward, this will set up these 2-year chairmanships after my tenure. So thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Great. Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the next motion, and I would like to thank Charles for his service as vice chair as well. But I make a motion that we have Mike Davis be the vice chair for the next year.
Great. Thank you for that motion. Is there a second to the motion? Right. Seconded by Dana Van Horn. Is there any discussion? Well, I'll just echo the gratitude to Charles for serving as vice chair, has served in leadership positions on this board many, many times, and we just appreciate all of your service to this board, and it will be great to serve with Mike Davis, assuming that this motion passes. So all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right. We have Mike Davis as our vice chair for the 2024 Board of Water Resources. So we are at adjournment time. I will just note that I'm sorry, I've had a last minute thing come up and I will be unable to join the holiday luncheon that takes place after this meeting. And so I will just now take a minute again to express my gratitude. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to my colleagues, and then also to the department staff and everyone who's engaged as stakeholders in the work we do. It's just such an honor. I know the end of the year is always a time of reflection, and so the work that we've been doing and the people that we work with have been on my mind at the end of the year. And all of this gratitude has been on my mind. So thank you very much. And so with that, I'd be looking for a final motion so we can get to lunch. All right, Blaine Ibsen makes it. All in favor? Great. This meeting has adjourned. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.